All right. Allies of Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio are aiming to spend $45 million on a super PAC campaign to mobilize swing state voters in support of Donald Trump's presidential campaign. The super PAC, Turnout for America, is being spearheaded by a close friend and political ally of Vance, who has been developing a donor network with help from the Ohio senator that includes some of Trump's wealthiest backers. And Carrie Lake, remember that name? Well, she won the Republican primary for U.S. Senate in Arizona yesterday. She was I should say she's set up for a high-stakes contest in the fall for the seat of Senator Kristen Sinema, who is retiring. Her victory over Mark Lamb, the county sheriff there, extends her 3-year transformation into a fierce pro-Trump firebrand. A former news anchor, she will now face Representative Ruben Gallego, a Phoenix area former Marine who had no opposition in the Democratic primary. And more than 100 venture capitalists said today that they have pledged to vote for President or Vice President Kamala Harris in November and have solicited donations for her presidential campaign in a rejoinder to the splintering among tech leaders over whom to support in the election. They said, we are pro-business, pro-American dream, pro-entrepreneurship, and pro-technological progress. The group said this in a statement posted to their website, vcsforkamala.org. They say, we also believe in democracy as the backbone, that is, of our nation. Former President Donald Trump questioned Vice President Kamala Harris's identity as a Black woman today in front of an audience of Black journalists at the National Association of Black Journalists conference in Chicago. He went on to suggest that Vice President Harris adopted her racial profile as a political term. He said he saw her frequently and she was Indian, he said, all the way. And then all of a sudden, according to Trump, she, being VP Harris, made a turn and she became a Black person. Now, this is what Trump said of Kamala Harris, who grew up in Oakland, went to a historically Black college, pledged a Black sorority, and by every account, and I know it because I've known her since we were 18 years old, has always identified as a Black woman. But according to Trump, she just became Black. One CNN survey found that Black voters, speaking of Black people, previously split 70% for Biden and 23% for Trump. Now, this new poll shows a wider margin of 78% for Harris and only 15% for Donald Trump. And some polls suggested that 15% is probably wishful thinking. There's some other polling news out, and that polling news shows that VP Harris is performing particularly well in several key states heading into the Democratic convention next month in Chicago. According to some polling numbers, Harris leads Trump in 4 swing states: Arizona 49-47, Michigan, big state, 53% to 42%, Nevada 47% to 45%, and even in Wisconsin, the polls have her at 49% and Trump at 47%. Even in Georgia, which has been red and maybe purple, they are, according to this poll, tied at 47%. Trump does appear to have a lead over Harris in North Carolina at 48%, and in Pennsylvania at 50% Trump, 46% Harris. But that might change really quickly because the United Auto Workers have endorsed VP Harris today, giving her the support of one of the nation's most influential unions after it had delayed to assess her approach to key issues, including the war in Gaza and U.S. investments in manufacturing jobs. The UAW's endorsement throws the union's powerful organizing muscle behind Harris, who faces a tight race against Donald Trump. The union has about 370,000 members with large presence in key battleground states like Michigan and Wisconsin. And a Justice Department watchdog criticized Attorney General William P. Barr, former Attorney General William P. Barr, for a chaotic and disorganized response to the demonstrations spurred by George Floyd's murder in 2020. However, this watchdog found that Barr did not order the forced removal of protesters from a park near the White House. The 4-year investigation covers one of the most polarizing moments of Trump's presidency, his decision on June 1st, 2020, to walk from the Rose Garden through Lafayette Park, which federal law enforcement officers had violently cleared of protesters for a Bible brandishing photo opportunity at a nearby church. That's the news of the day, and this is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I'm going to be joined by Dr. Raphael Sonnenschein. He's the executive director of the John Randolph Haynes and Dora Haynes Foundations. We may also be joined by Jamar Brown. He's having some technical difficulties, so we'll let you know if Jamar is going to join us. He is the former director of the Texas Democratic Party and a Democratic strategist. And in hour two, you know what we do? We go deep. We dig behind those headlines and bring you those stories that people are talking about. Well, if you've been on X, formerly Twitter, today, you know that one of the biggest stories that's trending is Trump's disastrous interview at the National Association of Black Journalists convention in Chicago. Well, you remember yesterday on the show, we talked to some journalists about the decision of the president and the board of that organization to even invite Donald Trump. Very prominent Black journalist says, why is he coming? This is supposed to be a safe space for Black journalists. He has attacked Black journalists for years. He's called us names. He's, used every negative word and phrase that you can think of, not only to attack journalists, but to attack Black people. So many prominent journalists didn't see why he would even be extended an invitation. Well, the president of NABJ says, look, we have a history of inviting those nominees who are running for president. They said we had George W. Bush, we had Barack Obama, we had Bill Clinton, and we've extended an invitation to Kamala Harris. And they said, what would we be as a journalistic organization if we did not investigate, interrogate, and question those who want to be president of the United States? Well, as it turns out, those folks who thought it was a bad idea probably are saying right now, we told you so. Trump's behavior on that stage, all I can call it is weird. That's the new buzzword for Democrats. We're not using the Hillary Clinton word, deplorable. We're just going with the weird. It pretty much says it all. So in hour two, I'm going to be playing some of the clips from that interview. You'll be surprised, I think stunningly surprised at some of the things that Donald Trump said on that stage. Well, it was supposed to be an hour interview, cut short, only 34 minutes. Apparently, one of the moderators was getting a stern warning from the Trump team to end the conversation because there was no real closure. It wasn't like, okay, well, thank you. We're going to ask you the last question. It was very abruptly, we have to go. Trump's team is saying we have to go. So somebody apparently didn't like how it was going and thought it was a good time to pull the plug on Donald Trump. Sharon Reed, an award-winning anchor and a host on In the Black Network, is going to join me in hour two. Sharon was on the show yesterday as we talked about the decision of the NABJ to even have Trump there. So I want Sharon to come back because she may be one of those people that said, I told you so. She was not in favor of Trump being at that convention. She pretty much predicted what would happen. I will tell you now, yes, stay tuned for hour two, but some of the things that Sharon said yesterday, in fact, did come true today. So we're going to bring you, again, some of the most salient clips from that interview and analysis with my good friend and regular contributor, Sharon Reed. So make sure you stick around for hour two. But before I bring in my guest, here's what I'm thinking in real time. So something that hasn't happened in the Democratic Party in a very long time happened yesterday in Atlanta, Georgia. That is, Vice President Kamala Harris took the stage at not a school, not a union hall, not a plant, but a huge auditorium. We haven't seen Democratic presidential nominee previously, Joe Biden, and Vice President candidate Kamala Harris at big stadiums because, quite frankly, they couldn't fill those stadiums. Yesterday, though, 10,000 people poured into a stadium in Atlanta to see the vice president. And there were thousands of people outside the stadium that couldn't even get in. That's how popular this ticket was. And I'm sure 90% of those people were there to see VP Harris, but there was also some celebrities on that stage. Stacey Abrams was there. Some local Congress people were there. The two Georgia Democratic senators were there. And then the main attraction was Megan Thee Stallion, the uber popular female rapper. She was there, and she got what I'll call the party started. And she did something as she was trying to rile this crowd up and talking about her support for Kamala Harris. She coined a slogan called Hotties for Harris. Started trending online, Hotties for Harris. Now, Megan wasn't dressed in her normal, concert attire. And she wasn't singing some of her songs that have pretty explicit lyrics, like WAP, the song she does with Cardi B. She had some cleaned up lyrics because obviously, she's opening for the vice president, and there were probably families in that audience. So there were kids. Summer is in, school is out. So I'm certain there were teenagers and kids. But boy, did Megan's performance get under the skin, get under the collar, and just downright pissed off conservatives. They got fired up and pretty much had a meltdown over this trending phrase, slogan, Hotties for Harris. These pearl-clutching, misogynistic conservatives were up in arms on the internet all day yesterday. You would have thought that Megan had performed one of her uncensored versions of some of her songs, again, that have explicit lyrics. You would have thought she was twerking the afternoon away, but she was doing none of that. She was dressed in a beautiful blue pantsuit. She was singing her songs with, censored lyrics, which a lot of rappers do, which is how these songs are played on the radio station pretty much every day. But it was just the audacity for Kamala Harris to go into Atlanta, into this state where we know Trump was trying to find 11,000 more votes, a state where Biden won by a narrow margin, that she went in and she energized the Georgia voters, 10,000 people inside and thousands outside, cheering when she walked onto the stage to Beyonce's Freedom Song, her new theme song that she's gotten permission to use from Beyonce. 2-minute plus standing ovation for Kamala Harris. Boy, what a difference 9 days can make in a campaign. But the conservatives, again, had a complete meltdown. Here are some of the things that they were posting on X, formerly known as Twitter. Here's one of the posts. The left-wing movement is pure ghetto trash. That's what one of the right-wing commentators wrote. He went on to provide a list of movements favoring the presumptive Democratic nominee, Kamala Harris. And these are some of the terms that you should expect to see online by these conservatives. Hoes for Harris, i.e. as in short for whore. Hood rats, this is one of my favorites. Hood rats for Harris. Single black mamas for Kamala. White dudes for Harris. I mean, these are just some of the pejorative slogans, terms posted by these conservatives who were having this meltdown. Many replies beneath the post called out, rightfully so, the racism embedded in this tone, as well as the clear double standard. After all, Trump has Kid Rock. He's no saint. Also, Trump, that's the guy where we just saw him get convicted on 34 felony counts after a porn star testified under oath that she had sex with Donald Trump while his wife was at home nursing their brand new baby. So this is the guy that made the comment about grabbing women by the pee. So these are the Republicans that are so outraged about Hotties for Harris, coined by Megan, but yet we don't see that same reaction when a sitting president, because he was already in office when we first learned of Stormy Daniels and her story, but now a former president who wants to be president has to defend himself against having sex with a porn star. So these double standards are so transparent. We see through them. We're not going to be bothered by them. Go ahead, Megan, Hotties for Harris. Let that phrase keep trending online, because it just shows the excitement all over this country for Kamala Harris, and it's driving Trump and conservatives wild. well, I got something for them. They're going to continue to be upset, irritated, and pissed off because the momentum is just going to keep growing and growing and growing and growing. So better get ready for hotties for Harris. More when we come back with today's pressing and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580. Tavis is like George and Wheezy. He's moving on up. Last year, Tavis was number 45 on the Talkers Magazine list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America. Wait for it. Wait for it. The 2024 list was recently released, and Tavis has jumped to number 33 on the list of the nation's most important talkers, making him the highest-ranked African-American on the coveted roster. Congratulations to Tavis Smiley from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580. We've got you black.
Are you wet shaving? You'll get razor bumps.
Nah, Pops, I'm good with Gillette Skin Guard. How long you been growing that beard Mama hates anyway?
Since 77, I shaved and got ingrown so bad.
That's why I use the Gillette Skin Guard razor, face scrub, shave gel, and moisturizer. So I don't have to worry about new razor bumps or shaving irritation.
Gillette Skin Guard, huh? Your mama's gonna love this one.
The best a man can get keeps getting better with Gillette Skin Guard. Buy now at a retailer near you.
It's been said that when someone you love has Parkinson's, you have Parkinson's.
The Parkinson's Foundation knows that the disease doesn't just affect the diagnosed. It affects everyone who supports and helps care for them.
If you have questions, the Parkinson's Foundation has answers.
We can help you understand the disease
and give you tips for living a better life.
Find your answers at parkinson.org or call 1-800-473-4636. The Parkinson's Foundation. Better lives together.
You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us in our climate justice campaign partner, LA City Council member Curran D. Price Jr., as we celebrate the grand unveiling of the South LA Greenway, Saturday, August 3rd, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Augustus Hawkins Nature Park, 5790 Compton Avenue in the city of Los Angeles. Join us for a green and healthy festival with free food, planting activities, tree adoptions, nature walking tours, Zumba, yoga, sound baths, and more. It's summer, time to get outside. We look forward to seeing you at the dedication of the South LA Greenway, Saturday, August 3rd, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Augustus Hawkins Nature Park, 5790 Compton Avenue in the city of Los Angeles. Caring about the climate, caring about the community, LA City Council member Curran D. Price Jr. and KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and Dr. Raphael Sonnenschein, Rafe, which is what he is known by, and allows his friends to call him. Thank you, Rafe. You and I have not talked since this just seismic shift in the party. Joe Biden stepping down on July 21st, and then shortly thereafter endorsing Kamala Harris, her solidifying the spot and basically shutting out all those people who would be president. What did you think when you first heard the news?
Now, which news? That
the
Joe
news
Biden,
that Biden was stepping down.
Well, I was shocked. I was devastated because I was in the camp of riding with Biden and thinking that he should stick it out. I felt much better by the next day when I realized that he was going to throw his support completely to Harris without opening it up, as crazy pundits kept saying. Why not have a free-for-all circus? And I started to think this was going to be awfully interesting, but I had no idea, I'm happy to say I'm wrong, that she was going to explode within days into what we have now, into this situation. And I'd like to believe that Biden had this whole thing planned, but I think that's probably not right. But
well,
he did
Ray, I've been telling everyone this was very strategically planned to happen when it did after the RNC, after Trump had already cemented his whole campaign strategy, because, he's melting down over the change. So we could just go with that story that Democrats are
Let's
really,
go
really
with that
smart.
story. But the best part of the story is that he didn't give in to the people who wanted to shove him out and create an open convention. So he headed that off by not saying, I'll give a speech in 3 days, which gives people a chance to give him trouble. He just put out, what was it, a tweet or a letter or something like that, and said, I'll give you a speech when I feel like it. And then he gave a speech that probably is going to be in the record books. And he's going to look awfully good at that convention. He's going to get a hero's welcome on the first night that will rival Bobby Kennedy's appearance at the 1964 convention right after his brother's assassination.
Yeah, I think every night there's going to be major tributes to him as he has kind of exited the stage to give room for Kamala Harris. No one, I got notice of it a couple of days before it was happening. I was a little incredulous. Didn't know if the news was accurate or not. So much fake news out there. But overall, as you said, the fact that Harris has been able to unite the party in a way that we haven't seen in years. What do you think about these new polling numbers out that have her up in key swing states? Like the one that's most shocking to me, which I'm a little incredulous about, again, is Michigan has her at 53-42. That just doesn't track with what we kind of know about Michigan, but maybe so. And I'm just thinking about those pro-Palestinian voters who aren't necessarily thrilled with Harris and not separating herself from Biden's policy on Israel.
I think she should win Michigan, but not by that much. I think that's an outlier. What's astonishing is that she's pulled into all the battleground states, even if it's margin of error. She's in contention now for a map, which includes both states like Arizona and Georgia, which were looking like they were gone, especially Georgia, along with the Midwest and Pennsylvania. She has.
What do you think about that? This poll race has her down in Pennsylvania. Trump at 50 and she at 46. Do you think that's an outlier?
I think that's an outlier, and I think that she's actually going to be okay in Pennsylvania. I think, especially by the way, when we talk about the VP choices, two of whom could potentially help in those battleground states. But Pennsylvania comes in late for the Democrats. In fact, you usually have to stay up all night, and then they win comfortably. I think it's probably a tie, or she's probably a little bit ahead, which, again, we talk about Seabiscuit, running next to the horses and then turning it on at the end. This is a very good place for her to be, and way better, I have to say, than where Joe Biden was 2 weeks ago.
And, what do you make of all of these different, we're definitely going to talk about the VP. We'll talk about that on the other side. But what do you make of these some unlikely characters like these venture capitalists? Now, obviously, she has strong ties to Silicon Valley. She's a Northern California political creature. I mean, that's where she got her political chops. So I'm not totally surprised that Silicon Valley is split. But I was surprised to see this 100 venture capitalists pledge support and say, hey, we're going to be out here raising money for her. The LinkedIn president, he's been pro-Harris for a while, and he's leading this charge in some ways. What do you make of that? Because these are the guys that you would think are going to be most solidly behind Donald Trump. They're the 1% of the 1%ers.
Well, tech is funny. Tech started out as a Democratic place, a Democratic zone in the early days. And then when Trump came in, a group of them kind of began to move toward him. And that meant everybody thought all of tech is going that way. So Peter Thiel, who, really promoted Vance to that wonderful decision to make him the vice presidential candidate, and Elon Musk and all those folks moved heavily to the right. But I think there's kind of a big part of tech that's still Democratic and is saying, what are we, chopped liver? And I think now that Harris is the nominee, I think they're coming in. So I think tech is split. And I think it's always had a lot of Democrats. Republicans got all the attention last years. Now I think maybe that's healthy for our country that tech is not unified, because we don't want tech to run everything. But it's not all right wing either.
And I love their statement. We are pro-business, pro-American dream, pro-entrepreneurship, and pro-technological progress. So I love the fact that they say, look, we can be pro-business and still support a Democrat for president, because there's this notion that a lot of people have that if you're pro-business, you have to be a Republican. And I tell people that all the time. I'm pro-business. I'm an entrepreneur. I believe in making a whole lot of money. But, you can be Democratic and believe in, making money. There's this notion that if you're a Democrat, you got to believe in, you can't also be pro-business, which business, small businesses in particular are the backbone of this country. So if we didn't have, small business owners and Democratic small business owners, we wouldn't have, folks in our party. So that was a really important, I think, statement by these tech, leaders to show that, as you said, it's not a monolithic group. When we come forward, I do want to talk about the presidential sweepstakes. It's getting close. She's got to make that decision in the next couple of days, because by August 7th, she is supposed to be campaigning. She being VP Harris in some of these battleground states. I want to get your take on who is at the top of that short list, because there is a lot of campaigning happening for these various candidates by their supporters. When we come forward, more at KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. A federal judge in Baltimore has ruled that Baltimore County Police did not racially profile a man during a December 2020 traffic stop. Christopher Carey, who was Black, had filed a lawsuit against police claiming officers racially profiled him, called for a K-9 unit to check his car for drugs, and violated his civil rights. In issuing the ruling, the judge said the officers' actions were reasonably related to issues regarding Carey's vehicle registration, and the searches were based on probable cause. One local chapter of the NAACP is pushing for statewide approval of AP African American Studies at Georgia high schools. Gwinnett School Superintendent Dr. Richard Woods is receiving backlash for not recommending the course for statewide approval. Representatives for the organization cited systemic racism as part of the reason AP African American Studies isn't already a staple in Georgia schools. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Over in West LA, watch for an accident currently on the right shoulder, causing heavy traffic at the 405 North before Sunset Boulevard. On the Sepulveda Pass, watch for a stalled Big Rig that continues to block the right lane of the 405 North before the Mulholland Drive, Skirball Center Drive interchange, and heavy traffic continues over 55 minutes from Braddock Drive. Echo Park's 101 South at the Benton Way Rampart Boulevard split. A stall is currently blocking the left lane, causing a 15 to 20 minute backup from Sunset Boulevard. Also, watch for an accident blocking the right lane just before Echo Park Avenue on the northbound side of the 101, and over 20 minutes at the moment is running heavy from 4th Street.
The best nugs are now even better. Wendy's new saucy nugs take the nugs you love and sauce them up in bold flavors, including buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic parm, and spicy ghost pepper. Try them all today. For a whole new way to nug, it's gotta be Wendy's. A participating U.S. Wendy's.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The U.S. men's Olympic basketball team is back on the court today in Paris. Second round matchup against South Sudan, a country that got its name and independence only 11 years ago. Do not sleep on the players from this small African nation. There are several players on the South Sudan roster with NBA and NCAA experience. South Sudan point guard Carlik Jones was the G League Player of the Year last season. They've got an 18-year-old 7'2" center named Kaman Maluch, who's going to Duke in the fall. LeBron's agent, Rich Paul, has already introduced himself to Maluch. These two teams have played each other already. In an exhibition game July 20th in London, South Sudan lost by only 1 point. The rematch today is on the Olympic stage and should draw a huge TV audience. You can catch the game live at noon on the USA and Peacock networks. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Pick up the drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Have you heard of the 50-30-20 rule? This can help you spend and save your money wisely. So how does it work? Distribute your dollars into 3 buckets. 50% towards needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% goes to savings. Use this tool to help your journey to financial success. Sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys. Let's take an auntie to the swap meet. Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% APR on all 2024 Silverado 1500, Blazer EV, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Colorado models. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 17.0%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take the retail delivery by 7/31/24.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us for a book party celebrating The Covenant with Black America 20 years later. Almost 2 decades ago, the Covenant book, compiled and edited by Tavis Smiley, climbed to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list and stayed there for weeks. The first book by a Black-owned publisher to achieve such a feat. The urgency of the issues that matter most to Black fellow citizens has only intensified, especially in this critical election year. On Wednesday evening, August 14th, 6 to 9 p.m., come meet Tavis Smiley alongside Covenant contributors including Cornel West, Connie Rice, Mark Ridley Thomas, Elisa Orduna, Tyrone Howard, and Melina Abdullah as they sign copies of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later. You can purchase your books on site and get them autographed. That's Wednesday evening, August 14th, 6 to 9 p.m. in the city of Los Angeles. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black.
We are back, and Dr. Raphael Sonnenschein is with me in this hour. And in hour 2, we are going all in on that disastrous interview Donald Trump had this afternoon at the National Association of Black Journalists Convention in Chicago. It's about a 34-minute interview, and he managed to insult pretty much every Black person in America during that interview, as well as other people who don't even identify as African Americans. We're going to play you some of the clips, the most interesting clips, those clips that have people talking online. Get your reaction to them. And Sharon Reed, Emmy Award-winning journalist, is going to join me in hour 2. Sharon had some predictions yesterday about this interview. We're going to tell you what those predictions were yesterday and see what Sharon thinks about the actual interview that took place on that stage in Chicago with many of her colleagues in the room at the time of this what I'm calling very weird interview. So make sure you stick around, because if you've not heard or seen this interview, you definitely want to make sure that you do, because it's important information as you're doing your research on candidates. All right, Rafe, a couple of things are happening right now all over the country after a win with Black women Sunday night, the July 21st, the night of the announcement. They put up a call to Black women. First, I don't know, had 1,000, maybe 3,000 available slots on Zoom. That call grew to 44,000 people, and they raised several $1 million. And from that call, they have encouraged, and others have been inspired by them. They've had a call with Black men. They've had a call with gay Black men. They've had a call with South Asian women. And then there was white dudes for Kamala, a call that had, 180,000, some incredibly large number of people, and again, raised some substantial money. Now there's some blowback that I'm reading about, an article in particular in the Atlantic, where someone who was on that call and said that they're concerned about these calls, that they play into this whole notion of identity politics and into this notion of Democrats being this elitist class. They call it the laptop crowd. and that we are giving, we being Democrats, more ammunition for Donald Trump to make himself the populist candidate that is organizing and building coalitions with working people. What do you think of that argument?
Well, with all respect, I understand the argument where it comes from. We're at a moment now where Democrats have rediscovered a sense of humor, which has been, by the way, in a cave somewhere for about the last 40, 50 years. And there's two types of humor. There's humor where you make light of yourself a little bit, which is very effective in politics. Ronald Reagan used to do it all the time. And the better one is making fun of your opponent. And you use the word weird, Areva. The word weird has become a phenomenal political tool for Democrats, even though some Democrats say it's not nice. I mean, really. It
Well,
is
let me say this,
driving-
Rafe. A lot of them are saying this is our new motto that we've pretty much walked away from. When they go low, we go high. They're like,
Oh, God.
Michelle, we love
Yeah.
you, but that's outdated today.
But attacking with humor is an absolute dominant force. I think in a way these calls are Democrats making fun of the image of the Democrats as a party of interest groups. I think there's one starting for Deadheads, for Grateful Dead fans. I just read that in the paper. The White Dudes is in its sense also a kind of a self, making fun of oneself. But it's also a great way to hold rallies without having to rent an auditorium. And it raises money. I think people are having fun with it, to tell you the truth. And Democrats are so desperate for having fun in politics. I mean, look at the things that everybody's been talking about. We're going to have to leave the country. Is there no hope? Handmaid's Tale, all this. And the voters say, boy, do you folks ever laugh about anything? And then it turns out that Donald Trump never laughs. He only makes fun of other people, but even then he doesn't actually laugh. So
that's so true. We never see him happy because his whole persona is darkness, right? And that everything is so dark and everything is so horrible.
But he's funny in his attacks on people. That's his one place where, even there, though, he doesn't laugh. But like most people who do that, they very much hate to be made fun of. And former Republicans who are migrating over to the Democrats are telling Democrats, make fun of him. Make fun of them. Do it again and do it again and do it again. And when you find something sticks, do it again. And this has been an amazing 9 days. It's been a kind of a awakening for the Democratic Party, but also an enlivening in a lot of ways that it must have been boiling up, Areva. It's got to have been inside, sitting there ready, like a laughing id. I mean, it's just really... It's a crack up. It's really a crack up.
Yeah, you're right. These calls, first of all, they're long. I mean, these are like rallies aren't 3 hours. Donald Trump rallies are 5 hours, but these are long calls where people are talking about. I was reading about this White Dudes call. They were talking about suicide rates, male loneliness. Of course, talking about the accomplishments of VP Harris, but these are like really soul-bearing calls, right? They're not just like, very rigid political calls. These calls are, I think, combination rally, church, some kind of religious experience, therapy for a lot of people. And you're right, there are all these splinter calls now, smaller groups, some large, 10,000 Black women in California had a call. I have a Black gay friend. He said he was on the Black male call, and he said the Black gay men were not happy that they weren't represented, so they did their own call. So, people are just deciding what group that they are a part of and bringing these groups together. And as you said, they're raising money and they are creating, this kind of momentous impact. So it's like a domino effect. And of course, I do worry too. I do have friends who are not going to be on these calls, who are not. They don't have the luxury to sit on a computer for 3 hours. They're working 2 jobs. They're raising their kids. So I did think about that too. But it doesn't mean everything has to be for everybody. It's just one way of organizing people. Doesn't mean we're going to do away with in-person rallies. Doesn't mean we're not going to have a strong, ground game for this campaign. We're not going to just depend on these calls to get Democrats elected. But they are pretty significant.
The calls save money that can, of that $200 million she raised, a lot of that can be used for going door to door because the calls don't cost much.
Yes, absolutely. And, it's technology, right?
Yeah.
It's moving. Think about Obama when he, created in some ways this whole small giving, small donors, phenomenon where people could give $10, could give it every month and raise all that money. So, we all got accustomed to Zoom. This wouldn't have happened but for COVID, right? Where we all started to live on Zoom and started to connect. I have friends who say they connect still with friends that, like their Friday happy hours that they're doing on Zoom. So it is a phenomenon that is new to this campaign. And so far it's been incredibly effective. I do want to talk, though, about the VP.
Sure.
A lot of campaigning going on. Folks are starting to get their donors to, start putting some money behind particular candidates that they want to see. I saw a whole article today about Pete Buttigieg, about why he would be a great candidate. I know some folks are really putting some money behind trying to push Mark Kelly from Arizona, the astronaut and senator. So when we come forward, I wanted to get your take on this notion that the VP1 needs to be from a swing state, because that hasn't always been the case.
Right.
Typically not the case. And what is it that a VP can bring? Trump said at this interview today at NABJ that vice presidents bring nothing, that they're inconsequential. He said that in response to, his disastrous pick in J.D. Vance. So when we come forward, we're going to talk about the vice president, such a big decision that the sitting vice president has to make about who she's going to run with as her vice president. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580, when we come forward.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey LA, today I'm here to talk to you about Grid Alternatives, which is a nonprofit in LA that focuses on renewable energy. We serve communities who have been left out of the renewable energy sector. We offer paid job training, and in 13 weeks, you can become a solar installer. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry, and once you're hired in the industry, you stop at a high, medium income. That could be $20 an hour or more. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry. Call today so you don't be left out at 323-861-0105 or gridalternatives.org, gridalternatives.org.
If you're an adult in need of an accredited high school diploma, the Los Angeles Public Library can help. You could earn one for free in as few as 5 months, online with 24/7 access. You also get a personal academic coach, plus special training focused on 9 in-demand industries, as well as a resume and cover letter to advance your career. Visit the website at lapl.org/diploma. That's lapl.org/diploma.
Oh, man. Looks like Bobby needs a ride to the airport again.
Grab the keys.
Who's taking Auntie and her friends to the swap meet?
Grab the keys.
How about we drop these boxes off at Miss Johnson?
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, you're all about getting things done. So do it all in a Chevy SUV. From the versatile Equinox and sporty Blazer to the roomy Traverse, our lineup of SUVs will carry you through every adventure. All you have to do is
grab the keys.
That's how we do. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% APR on all 2024 Silverado 1500, Blazer EV, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Colorado models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment, 17.0%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/31/24.
We're not just a thermometer recording and broadcasting popular opinion. We aim to be a thermostat, transforming the conversation about climate justice in our community. This is KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Rafe, you've been around politics for a very long time. Help us understand why, in this moment, everyone thinking or everyone talking about the VP candidate keeps tying that person to a swing state or a battleground state, as if that is the way presidents historically have chosen their VP.
Usually, presidents choose their VP to fill a gap. Maybe they're new, so they get somebody more experienced. Maybe they're a centrist, they get somebody who's more left or right in their party, or you get the hope that they'll carry a swing state. Now, Donald Trump doesn't follow any of those rules. He just does an apprentice program and decides at the last minute, because he doesn't actually care who the vice president is, not remotely. That's why that question he was asked had him so bollocksed up. He couldn't think of whether it would matter if the person became president or even helped him, because in his view, it's all about him. And he said that. He said, it's just basically, if you like me, it's over. If not, too bad. I don't know what I would have thought.
Let's give context to that. This is the question they asked Donald Trump at this NABJ convention. Would JD Vance, be ready on day one? And he was like, what? Ready for what? Like,
I mean, he hasn't even thought about whether he'd be ready on day one, let alone the vice
president.
But
he really seemed confused by the question. Like, he really didn't know what they meant by ready. Like, yeah, dude.
He can't figure out why he has to have a running mate. That's just somebody who takes airtime away from him and is kind of a pain in the neck. Now, Democrats are more traditional, and they look for somebody, having watched episodes of West Wing for many years, to find out who would fill in for you if something happened. But they've gotten it down to about 4 people, it looks like. Governors and senators, which is very traditional. I will say there's an informal audition, though, which I find very heartening for Democrats. They no longer seem to be looking for the quiet alternative who's above the battle, who maybe has white hair and sort of babbles about nothing and doesn't offend anybody. These folks are all going around auditioning to be the attack dog for the president, so the president doesn't have to do all the attacking, presidential candidate. And they're all very, very good at it. It's a great group. You've got Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania governor, I think maybe in the lead. Critical.
Well, let me stop you by Josh. So Pennsylvania, obviously Harris is down according to these poll numbers today. So Pennsylvania is a critical state. Josh Shapiro, though, has been a hardliner on Israel, pro-Israel, and we know that Harris has some explaining to do to a lot of young voters on her stance on the war in Gaza. Does Josh Harris bring baggage and more attention to this pro-Israel approach of the United States that is a rub for some younger and even some voters of color?
It could well be. I think you'll find that all 4 of the candidates who are in the finals at this point probably have roughly similar positions. His maybe is more visible. And I think that's something she'll consider. I think in traditional terms, he's usually popular in a critical top 10 state. He would normally be at the top of the pile. But you're right. The other is a consideration. Mark Kelly, also a battleground state. What the heck? He's an astronaut, for God's sake.
Let me tell you Mark's problem, Rafe. Mark did not vote for a pro-labor bill that would have made unionizing easier. So there's some labor leaders, and we saw that big UAW endorsement today, some labor leaders who are saying ex-nay to Mark.
And Shapiro has a few issues with some of the labor unions in the education field. Now, at the end of the day, I don't think labor is going to veto anybody. And I don't think any of these big donors are going to, the momentum around the ticket is so big. There's 2 fairly entertaining other alternatives. One is Tim Walz, the Minnesota governor, who's a very informal guy, very charming, very appealing. And he's the one who came up with the idea of calling the other side weird.
Yeah.
It's not quite Kennedy-esque rhetoric, but it's made a huge impression on the party. And a lot of people like him a great deal. Another one, Andy Bashir, the governor of Kentucky.
I like him.
And a lot of people think he's absolutely terrific. His downside is he's from a state, it's one of these Southern governors from a state that Democrats can't possibly win. And that may be a factor, but he's got a lot of friends in the party. Now, all four of them, Pete Buttigieg is going on Fox News, which
Well, I was going to say, Pete is the guy that I'm seeing all these articles. So I know his apparatus is quietly working to elevate Pete. He's doing what on Fox? I didn't see that.
He goes on Fox a lot, which Democrats are afraid to do. And he very quietly demolishes arguments that are made. He's a terrific rhetorician. I still think his time is going to depend on winning a statewide office at some point, which has not been yet in the cards for him. But he's certainly in the mix and has a lot of really very strong supporters. The great thing about this is I think at the end of the day, everybody realizes nobody's going to tell Kamala Harris what to do about this. She's going to make her choice.
Oh, she's got to choose someone. We haven't talked about compatibility. It's like, somebody you're going to be married to. So you've got to like the person. You've got to like spending time with the person. You've got to trust the person. You've got to have, alignment on not only policy, but personality, because it's like having a VP at your company. You don't want to be in a business relationship or a personal relationship with someone you don't like or someone you don't really get along with. So, all of those characteristics and their families and, how their family presents and all of those matter as well. I'm thinking back to Tim Kaine and poor Hillary Clinton. There must have been a reason that she chose Tim Kaine, but he seemed to be the least, I don't know. He was like do no harm kind of guy. He definitely didn't add much to the ticket.
It was the typical defensive Democratic model, which is you get the first woman nominee running. So you try to find the exact opposite inoffensive thing to apologize for anybody who might be offended by your running a woman for president. Needless to say, that is not a great way to think about picking a vice president. You shouldn't be apologizing for anything. You should be doing what you're doing, saying, Areva, find out where your comfort zone is, where you think the most pop is for the election, but do not pick somebody who's not going to make an impression. Now, I must say, whoever they pick, let's just say I like their chances in a debate with J.D. Vance. Might I say that? I also think that's true of about 10 million people that I know, but I think that these folks in particular, I think this could end in a technical knockout before the debate is over, but they have to do.
Well, wait a minute. What do you? Trump is backing out of the debate, and he continued his attack on ABC News today with the attack on the journalists from ABC at the National Black Journalists Conference. He's saying, well, ABC's fake news. George Stephanopoulos is there. I don't want to be on, the stage with him. Maybe I'll do it if it's at Fox. And Kamala was, really like baiting him in Atlanta yesterday, saying, what's up? Why are you pulling out of this debate? Do you think Trump is going to debate her?
It's hard to say. I have a feeling what he'll say is I'll debate you on Fox, which
he's already said that.
That would present the vice president with an interesting choice, which is, do you call the bluff, even though it's not an ideal forum? I don't know what the answer to that is. I'd be very surprised if he took this first debate, but he's showing up at places, and I have this crazy thought that part of it is because Vance is on TV all the time. Vance just never shuts up. And I think he wants to get some airtime. He wants to get back into the center of things. I think he's very reluctant to debate her. But the question, I guess I'll throw it out at you, even though you asked the questions. What would you advise her if he backed out of the first one and said, I will go on Fox if it has to be Fox, because that's the only place I'm comfortable. Are you willing to debate me? I'm not sure.
No, there's no reason for her. Why? There's nothing in it for her to be. Even I'm going to talk about this in hour 2. The Fox anchor at the NABJ conference was so biased in her question, hit him she threw him the softest question he could get. No, with the momentum that Kamala Harris has, I see no value in her capitulating, letting Trump bully her, push her around. I think she stands her ground and say, we collectively as 2 nominees pick a network, not your favorite one, not mine, but one that we can both agree to. because I don't think it's going to be a good look for a woman to be pushed around by a man, i.e. Donald Trump, telling her, I only will do this on my turf. No, I think that'd be a horrible move for her. I think she says to him, I will debate you, and you have your network, I have mine. Let's pick one in the middle, or else I'll see you at the polls. She doesn't need a debate.
You have persuaded me. And it reminds me of when John McCain invited Barack Obama to slow down the campaign and go to Washington and talk about the economy. He spotted a trap, Obama, and said, no, we're going to keep campaigning and we'll deal with the economy after the election. It was a very good move not to be pulled in and ordered around. So
yeah, no, president cannot be dictated to, and definitely not by your opponent. That's what,
I'm persuaded.
That's like boss move number one. Don't let the guy you're running against tell you what to do. And this was already set. If he doesn't want to do ABC, there's some other network. Go to NBC. Go to CBS. There are other networks that are available, but no, Fox News categorically no, unless again she was dictating that decision. And since she is not, the answer, Mr. Trump, is no. Rafe, we're out of time. Pleasure. Thank you for holding it down. We missed Mr. Jamar Brown, but it's always a pleasure to be in conversation with you. We're going to be playing you some of those clips from that disastrous interview at the National Association of Black Journalists Convention. So make sure you stick around and see what Donald Trump had to say about Black folks. Again, what we come for? KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us. Thank you, Rafe. Sounds like you're catching a cold. I hope you feel better.
I'm getting over one, but I'm doing my best. I'm hanging in there.
Feel better. Thank you.
All right. Take care of yourself.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
See you, Robert. Bye-bye.